Hello, dear friends. Today we continue our acquaintance with the memoirs of Waffen SS Major General Kurt Meyer. Don't forget to rate the video and leave your opinion about this material. Well, let's begin. Frost gave way to rain. Water accumulated in the trenches and deep ruts in the roads and constantly flooded our uniforms. Cars, guns, and tanks got stuck in the mud. The Grenadiers waded through it knee-deep. Supplies became almost impossible to deliver and could only be transported by horse-drawn vehicles. The cars crawled along like turtles. Fuel consumption and losses of military equipment were disproportionate to the results. The army was sinking in the mud. Losses due to disease were increasing endlessly. The frost period began in mid-November. We had to dig frozen vehicles out of the mud one by one and warm up the engines using additional means. We became a crippled army. At that very moment, I was attending a very important meeting at the command post in the village of Lahanove. It concerned the important role of oil. Colonel General von Kleist, General von Mackensen, Sepp Dietrich, and several oil experts were present. They were convinced of the need to capture the Russian oil fields in Baku in order to continue the war. In this regard, the capture of Rostov became an absolute necessity. Lower-ranking military personnel listened silently as figures on oil production and consumption were cited, and the needs of the economy and the army were discussed. We did not have the necessary data and experience to evaluate these presentations. However, from a military point of view, the situation was different. Everyone warned against an attack on Rostov, pointing to heavy losses in the units and the fact that the army was simply not ready for such an operation. The divisions were depleted, there was a lack of military equipment, and the situation with winter uniforms, necessary for conducting a winter campaign, was extremely poor. Fur coats and hats were delivered from Mariupol with great difficulty. German soldiers could not be distinguished from Russian soldiers even at a distance of 100 meters. The health of the soldiers also left much to be desired. The commanders of units, divisions, and formations assessed the situation with absolute accuracy when they said, "We will attack, we will take Rostov and pursue the Soviet troops beyond the Don, but we will not be able to reliably defend the captured city." In mid-November, 11 soldiers of the 2nd Battalion of the 1st SS Infantry Regiment were found in a sewer pit of the NKVD building in Taganrog. They had been captured in September and, according to civilian testimony, had been thrown into the pit alive. The decision to attack Rostov was made on November 14th. The main strike was to be delivered from the west by the Leibstandarte Motorized Division and the 13th Panzer Division, and from the north by the 16th Panzer Division. The attack was supposed to begin on November 16th. However, it had to be postponed for a day because, due to severe frosts, there were not enough tanks and armored vehicles ready for the operation. My battalion advanced along the road and immediately came under heavy barrage fire in a heavily mined and fortified area. Every piece of land had to be fought for with unprecedented effort at a temperature of -30 degrees Celsius. The road to Rostov was captured only thanks to the exceptional tenacity of the SS troops. My soldiers fought without me for the first time and engaged in what were perhaps the heaviest battles they had ever fought. Fierce fighting broke out across the entire front around Rostov. The attacking divisions suffered heavy losses fighting in heavily fortified and mined terrain. Gerd Plays, the brave commander of the 1st Company of the 1st SS Reconnaissance Battalion, lost both legs and died on the way to the field hospital. Fritz Witt fought side by side with his grenadiers. Colonel General von Mackensen demonstrated a brilliant example of true Prussian valor. Patiently, summoning all their willpower, the troops of the 3rd Motorized Corps under his command continued to march through the snowdrifts and went on the attack together with the Leibstandarte. Grenadiers and generals stormed shoulder to shoulder across the icy fields near Rostov. The counterattacking T-34s crushed the light anti-tank guns of the 61st Motorized Division and threatened to break through, but then stood engulfed in flames under anti-aircraft fire. Tears of rage ran down the faces of the light anti-tank gunners. They were powerless against the steel monsters. The German 37mm anti-tank gun became a museum exhibit. Its caliber was no longer sufficient to destroy medium and heavy enemy tanks. The Grenadiers and tankers continued to attack with remarkable tenacity and fortitude, and on November 21st, they stormed the desperately defended Rostov. The 1st Company of the 1st SS Infantry Regiment managed to capture the bridge across the Don and occupy a small bridgehead. The commander of this company, Heinz Springer, was wounded 6 times during this operation, and only 12 soldiers remained in the company. The outcome of the battle for Rostov was summed up in the following order. Commander of the 3rd Motorized Corps. Corps Headquarters, November 21st, 1941. Corps Order. Soldiers of the 3rd Motorized Corps. The battle for Rostov has been won. On November 17th, before noon, the Corps began an offensive, carrying out the task of capturing Rostov and the bridge across the Don River. The task was successfully completed by November 20th. We captured more than 10,000 prisoners. According to the latest estimates, we also captured 160 guns, 56 armored vehicles, 2 armored trains, and a large number of other military equipment. Soldiers of my corps, we can all be proud of this great, new, and successful demonstration of the actions of our units, to which each individual soldier made an invaluable contribution. Neither the icy wind, nor the severe frost, nor the lack of winter clothing and military equipment, nor the darkness of moonless nights, nor the enemy's tanks, rocket artillery, and thousands of mines, nor the field fortifications, which took more than a week to build, and whose enormous size we all saw, nor even the Red Army soldiers themselves, nothing could stop our triumphant advance. As a result of a carefully and skillfully prepared surprise frontal attack to the east by the energetic Leibstandarte Division, with the active support of tanks from the 13th Panzer Division, the enemy's defenses were swept from their positions. The enemy was no longer successful, despite its fierce counterattacks, especially against the 14th Panzer Division, in an attempt to prevent the bold breakthrough of our 2 formations into the northern suburbs of the large city of Rostov, into the Don River and the bridges across it. The remnants of the retreating enemy troops tried to escape by crossing the Don. Thanks to its determination, the 1st Battalion of the 1st Infantry Regiment of the SS Division Leibstandarte, a unit accustomed to victory, even managed to capture the Rostov railway bridge intact. At the same time, with a decisive offensive carried out far to the east and southeast, the 60th Motorized Division successfully covered the exposed flanks of the Corps and took the village of Oksayskaya, while units and subunits of the 13th Tank Division quickly and decisively pursued the enemy retreating to the east. In addition, all Corps units, as well as Air Force units, especially our wonderful, flawlessly operating air reconnaissance pilots, made a significant contribution to our overall success. We have cut off the Russians' only effective link with the Caucasus once and for all. Now, we must hold on to what we have conquered in order to open the door to new victories as soon as the Führer orders them to be won. We also salute him with our Sieg Heil. Signed, von Metzkinsen, General of the Cavalry. Victory was achieved, but, as it turned out, disaster was already brewing. The Corps was stretched thin, and too weakened to carry out a prolonged defense of the captured objects. Our units, which were battered and bloodied, were subjected to continuous attacks by superior Soviet forces. My battalion, under the command of SS Hauptsturmführer Krass, fought on the Dead Donets River. This river branched off from the Don River near Rostov and formed the northernmost, rightmost arm of the Don Delta. The battalion held a position 8 kilometers along the front line. There were fewer than 300 soldiers on this defensive line. This included drivers, signalmen, staff workers, and all officers. There were no more supply trains. Everyone who could fight was at the front. As Soviet troops repeatedly attacked the German front northeast of Rostov, they threw newly formed divisions across the icebound Don, trying to crush the German forces weakened by heavy losses. The resilience shown by German soldiers in these fierce battles almost reached the limits of human endurance. The widely dispersed positions were located on the steep, icy northern bank of the river and faced south towards the frozen floodplains of the delta and the main channel of the Don. Only with great difficulty and with the help of explosives was it possible to dig shallow trenches in the hard ground. To protect themselves from the severe cold, they stripped warm clothes from dead German soldiers and even from dead Soviet soldiers. For 3 days, the Russians conducted active reconnaissance on our weak defensive front, indicating an impending offensive. My comrades watched all this without fear or excitement. They performed their duties almost fatalistically. The few officers were in their sectors, like sheepdogs, watching over the soldiers entrusted to them. I found Hugo Krass and Hermann Weiser in a small house, where they were evaluating the testimony of a deserter from the Russian cavalry division and preparing their units for the upcoming defensive battles. That's all for today. If you liked the video, please support it with a like and subscribe to the channel. See you all soon!